OMG, the Mets have dropped 8 of their last 9, and they could really use some grimace in their life going into a new series against the Braves tonight. Let's find out what the heck is going on with the METS with Tyler Ward, Mets content creator, and hopefully, Wardy, you're a voice of reason right now because a lot of people are ready to jump ship when it comes to the Mets. Let's start with this whole Mark Vientos, Francisco Alvarez news. Vientos is close to being called up from his rehab assignment, and Alvarez, as everyone knows, he's been optioned. What do you think Carlos Mendoza is going to do with the lineup now that Alvarez has been demoted and Vientos is close to being promoted?
Yeah, I think we're going to see kind of more of the same, right? Because Alvarez was not a guy that was consistently batting, anywhere higher for the most part than 6, 7, 8 spot range. So now that he's out for however long the Mets are going to have him there in the minor leagues, they're going to supplement that with Luis Torrens and then to a certain degree, Hayden Senger. And depending on who is catching for the Mets will ultimately dictate the lineup placement. If it's Torrens, it's likely that Torrens will be batting somewhere in that probably, I'd imagine, 6 through 8 range, whereas a guy like Sanger is more often than not probably going to be batting ninth because he's really not known for the bat as he's known for his defensive upside. That's why the Mets called him up as a corresponding move. And in the case of Vientos, when he was with the Mets this year, he was platooning based on matchup with Brandon Nimmo at the time. I don't know if you remember this, Brandon, but if it was a left-handed starter, then it would be more Mark Vientos gets the start there that we would see in the 4-hole. When it would be a right-handed starter, Nimmo would get more of the spot in the 4-hole. Well, since then, Brandon Nimmo has been thriving in the 2-hole while he's also batted every now and then. We've seen him right around 5th there while Marte's been the 2 spot. So I'd imagine that Vientos will get the bulk of his playing time going forward there. Probably, again, right around whether he's going to be, say, in the 5 spot or if he's going to be more in the 6 through 9 range. It'll really be indicative to see how he performs. But the one thing is certain that we've learned since Mark Vientos has been injured, Brandon Nimmo has absolutely thrived as a true 2-hole option for this Mets team. And I think it's in their best interest to try to keep him there as much as they can right now. If it ain't broke, why fix it, right?
So let's talk about the state of the Mets right now. They snapped a 7-game losing streak on Saturday where they hit 7 home runs, and then they turn around and get beat 7-1 on Sunday. This team looks lifeless at times, and it looks like they have zero aura up to this point. So if you're Carlos Mendoza, what are you worried about more, and what do you think needs to be addressed most? The lineup, which has gone cold during this stretch of the 8 losses in 9 games, or the pitching?
It's a healthy balance of both. And here's why, Brandon. Because on one hand, the Mets have had the same issue that they've had since the start of the season, and that's hitting effectively with runners in scoring position. They have been universally across the board as one of the more bottom feeders out of the National League this season, and that statistic alone, when looking at team batting average with runners in scoring position, I mean, I could tell you how many nights it's been the majority of Mets games this season where even when they score, say, 7 solo shots that we saw in their one victory in Philadelphia, they had very little to produce with runners in scoring position. Only 2 actual hits with runners in scoring position the entire series for the Mets while hitting 10 home runs. Make it make sense. And that's the problem right there. The Mets need to try to rectify that to a degree. And you mentioned aura and vibes. I'm so glad you did, Brandon, because when I think of aura and vibes, I think of 2 batters in particular that are not currently with the Mets, but will be, including starting potentially as soon as tonight, and Mark Vientos. When Mark's right, he brings that swagger, and he had that moxie. He had a lot of it last year that we saw, leading to his 27 home run season for number 27 there that we saw 70 RBIs, just over 100 games in his rookie campaign. He's been underwhelming so far this year, especially defensively. We know his liability, but I have faith, and I do have a level of trust in that bat to start to break out with his inevitable return. And then on the pitching end, there is a level of concern, more so in the fact that there's just uncertainty. The Mets far exceeded their expectations earlier this season that we saw on the rotational front, the best in baseball. Griffin Canning, right around a 2.5 ERA for a while, looking great, but Canning's come down to earth. Clay Holmes came down to earth. Tyler McGill's been on the injured list. Kodai Senga has been on the injured list. And you're awaiting Frankie Montas and Sean Manaea, their impact of this rotation. So I really do think it's a balance. On one hand, the Mets need to figure out their continued woes as far as the scoring position, because that's been their problem all season long. On the pitching end, something that's helped them, save face from these woes and really mask it has now reared its head because of their injury woes and inconsistencies as of late. They definitely will need to make moves from now leading up to the deadline on the pitching end, and offensively, we'll see what's in store for this team.
I'm also worried about their vibes because Francisco Lindor did homer Sunday night, and that made 28 straight games that the Mets had won a game when he homers, but they end up losing that one. That's one shy of an MLB record. And we talk about how this team can get hot. All it takes is one thing, I feel like. One big play, one big stat, and this team can catch fire. And that was unfortunate that they dropped last time. I know it was still 7-1 and he homered in the 8th, but still, that would have been great for them. That would have been perfect for something for this Mets team to rally or use to rally to win that game and then get themselves hot again. But hey, this is baseball. They start another series tonight. So give us your final thoughts, Wardy, going into this Braves series. And is this a season-defining moment for this squad sitting at 46-32 on the year?
Good question. I don't necessarily know if I'd go to the lengths of saying it's season defining, just because a lot of baseball has to be had this season, right? The Mets can go and lose their next 10 games, but who's not to say that they won't still make playoffs comfortably in the end? That's the beauty and the curse of a 162. A lot of highs, a lot of lows, and a lot of in between that we got to chop it up like we're doing right now. But in the case of this series between the Mets and the Braves, their second one over this past week. I mean, the Mets got embarrassed in Atlanta. Yeah. There was nothing good about how they performed in Atlanta. It is the house of horrors, Brandon, if you don't know that by now. More often than not, when the Mets are in Atlanta, bad things tend to happen. So it's nice to be now at home where the Mets have the best record in baseball, 27-10. Just ignore my 3-game losing streak at home. That's a discussion for another day. But when looking at these matchups and looking at these pitching performances, I really do like the ability for hopefully the Mets, again, to at minimum split this series. Fingers crossed Frankie Montas can be productive and actually be more than just a body that you throw out there for his season debut against Spencer Strider this Tuesday. A lot of question marks remain for this Mets team, but there's no better way to nip these questions in the bud by taking care of business against their rivals the way that they otherwise haven't, unfortunately, this past week of baseball.
All right, Wardy, appreciate you hopping on with us, my man.
Thank you so much, Brandon. Always a pleasure.